In this session, we are going to discuss about climate change. You all know that climate change is a really favorite area of UPSC, and they have been asking questions from the climate change topic. And even in this previous year's prelims examination, in 2017 prelims exam, there were 3 questions, and in 2016 prelims exam, there were 6 questions. Likewise, all the years they ask questions both for your prelims as well as for your mains. Also, there is a question like bring out the relationship between shrinking glaciers and shrinking glaciers in Himalayas and climate change. So, recently this topic has acquired a lot of importance. If you look at the news articles related to the climate change, recently, recently the US administration has moved away from the Paris Agreement, and there are a lot of climate change deniers also. So, in this aspect, it is important to understand whether climate change is true or not. Obviously it's true. We are having ample amount of symptoms both in India as well as in the world, which proves that climate change is real. Okay, so today's model question regarding the topic climate change is: bring out the symptoms of climate change in India and the world. Okay, so let's see what are the points we can write regarding this question. As an introduction, since this question, the question is not talking about the causes or the solutions about the climate change, right? They are specifically related with the symptoms. But even though we are bringing symptoms, we have to address this causes part as well as the solutions part. The solutions part can be fit into the conclusions part, as well as the causes region or causes part has to be addressed in the introduction, right? So let's see the introduction in the sense. First of all, let's start with saying what is climate change? Simply saying variation or shift in weather phenomena, or we can say change in the heat balance, moisture, precipitation, or cloudiness. All these things can be seen as climate change. Okay, need not bring everything need not bring both the points into your answer. You can either stick with say variation or shift in weather condition, or you can specifically mention the case of moisture, precipitation, and cloudiness. Anyway, then we have to mention about the major cause why the climate change is taking in an accelerated pace. Okay, the reason is anthropogenic effect. Since the Industrial Revolution, for the various kinds of developmental activities, we started to burn we started to burn fossil fuel, and resulting in the emissions of carbon. Okay, as well as due to cultivation and things like that, various carbon emissions has been made specifically due to the growing needs of humans, or that can be seen as anthropogenic effect. So those you can mention it under the introduction, right? Now this directly coming to the symptoms part. First, before going into these symptoms has been explained, or these symptoms has been validated by IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change. So in the sense we can say that, or if we say that all these symptoms has been validated by IPCC, that gives that gives authority or authenticity to the points which you are saying. Okay, so first let's start with the Arctic sea ice extent is diminishing. In the case we are having record high temperatures in the Arctic regions. This resulting in the diminishing of Arctic sea ice, as well as global sea level is rising, then sea surface temperature as well as the air temperature over the oceans, they are increasing. Normally we know that what will be the ocean's temperature, and if we are seeing an accelerated pace in its increasing in temperature in the sea surface as well as in the air temperature above the oceans, this can contribute to various other weather events. For example, the recent hurricane event in the Gulf of Mexico regions is seen as an impact of climate change. The reason is more sea surface temperature or more air temperature means more water vapor will be present there, resulting in or seeding various other extreme weather events. Okay, then humidity is increasing. In the sense, if you are having higher temperature, this will cause more evaporation, more humidity will be there. That we all know that the water vapor itself or humidity itself will act as reason for global warming. Okay, then snow cover is reduced and snow is melting earlier. In the sense, in the regions of Siberia, Greenland, and all these regions where usually snow cover is there, what happens is that this snow cover is melting and they are not gaining mass. That can be seen as a change in the climate change, or that can be seen as an impact or symptom of climate change. Then glaciers are melting. For example, like the Himalayan glaciers or the mountain glaciers, they are melting, and you can bring up certain example there. Here the glaciers are melting in the sense you can bring up the example of Himalayas, and Then migration of warm water fishes to north. Example, cod. I mean, the fishes which need warm water, if they are moving towards the polar regions, Arctic regions, that says that, or that shows that the conditions existing there are warm conditions necessary for these fishes. So that says that the climate change, or that acts as a symptom of climate change. Similarly, widespread blooms of algae in Bering Sea. Okay, normally Bering Sea is not having algae, and if you are witnessing more algae blooms in those regions, see it act as a symptom of climate change. So that these algae will act as, or will be invasive species regarding to the Arctic marine resources. Then spread of tropical pests and diseases towards high latitude. Again the same reason. I mean, pests and diseases then will be needing certain kind of temperature in order for their spreading. And if the tropical diseases or pests, if they are moving towards the high latitude, it means that the temperature is increasing in the high latitudes. So all these points will act, or can be seen as the symptoms of climate change in the world. Now, in the case of India, what are the symptoms of this climate change? The most important point there is the shrinking of Himalayan glaciers. And according to IPCC, the Himalayas are expected to shrink by 45% by 2000, or at the end of this century. Okay, so that can be seen as the symptoms of climate change, and thereby the shrinking Himalayan glaciers results in glacial lake outburst, or new flooding, things like that. Okay, and the next core point here is change in the pattern of monsoon. Okay, we know that the monsoon is highly dependent on the heating. The differential heating between land and oceans. In the sense, now we are witnessing more rainfall events in the northeast as well as northwest, and diminished rainfall in the southern peninsular regions. Okay, so this change in pattern of the monsoonal rainfall can be seen as the symptoms of climate change. As well as the monsoon we already know that the monsoon is concentrated for 4 months, but within this now we are seeing extreme rainfall events. Maybe more monsoon break days, rainfall won't be there for say 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and then when the rainfall comes, it will be heavy downpour, resulting in flooding, flash floods, and landslides or cloud bursts. Okay, so change in the pattern of monsoon can be seen as the symptom of climate change. Then frequent drought as well as flooding conditions. Again, the flooding can be seen as an after effect of monsoon, and the drought in the sense, an example we can bring up there is say the back-to-back drought condition we experienced during 2014 and 2015, and the southern states or southern peninsula states, they are witnessing more the monsoon, more drought events and extreme weather events such as heat waves. Now we are witnessing more stronger heat waves. The temperature, the normal temperature is been increasing, resulting in heat wave conditions in peninsular regions as well as in the northern central regions. So another symptom can say that the rise in the winter temperature. We all know that the temperature will be less during winter, and we will be having winter rainfall, which is important for rabi cultivation. So what happens is that during the winters, now we are witnessing higher temperatures. This can affect our agriculture productivity. So all these things can be seen as the symptoms in India. Okay, so we have discussed briefly the case of the climate change, what is climate change, and the case of industrial revolution. Then we have addressed the cases of symptoms in the world as well as in India. Now let's discuss about the major causes resulting in the climate change. When you are addressing the causes part, you should prioritize the symptoms over the causes. Directly the causes hasn't been asked in the question, but yet we have to bring up the causes, right? But more word limit has to be provided for the symptoms part. So address these causes as well as the solutions, which I'm going to discuss later. Address these causes and solution with minimum word limit. Okay, so the major cause we can say is fossil fuel burning, in the sense whether it is coal or say the gas reserves, anything. Okay, whether if you are burning fossil fuel, it will result in carbon emission. And animal husbandry or water logging, rice cultivation results in methane emission. If we are having anaerobic decomposition of vegetative matter, in the sense decomposition in the absence of air, okay, results in the methane emission. Methane is actually more potent greenhouse gas than the carbon emission or carbon dioxide. Then excessive use of nitrogen fertilizers in agriculture resulting in nitrous oxide. another greenhouse gas, nitrous oxide. So we have addressed 3 different causes here. Okay. Then another thing is ozone depletion as well as deforestation. Ozone depletion in the sense, we know that the ozone depletion is more prominent in the polar regions. So that more UV rays will be coming to these regions, resulting in the melting of glaciers, and if the glaciers or ice caps they are melted, the Earth's albedo will be decreased. Albedo in the sense, the amount of reflectivity, right? So if the albedo is decreasing, it means that more amount of heat is absorbed, which will be causing global warming and thereby climate change. And deforestation, for the various developmental activities, the forests are being degraded or they are being deforested, they are being cleared. In the sense, this will reduce the amount of carbon dioxide absorbed from the atmosphere. Okay. So all these things can be seen as major causes in the case of climate change. Now again, as I said, you have to give more word limit to the symptoms part. Now next, let's see about the solutions. The important solution that should be there in your answer is Paris Agreement. This is our closest chance to solve this problem of climate change. Anyway, like it is not completely preventable, right? But if we take right measures which are under the Paris Agreement, the extent of irreversible effects of climate change can be solved. So Paris Agreement, and we have to bring all the nations under the Paris Agreement, and they have to take ambitious emission reduction targets under Paris Agreement, and this will enable us to mitigate the impact of climate change. Then you can bring another protocol, Montreal Protocol. Recently the Montreal Protocol was amended in Kigali, and in order to phase out the hydrofluorocarbons. Now if you could phase out the hydrofluorocarbons, that will help us to reduce global warming by 0.5 degrees Celsius at the end of this century. So it is actually one of the very cost-effective measures to solve the climate change. Then investing in low carbon technologies, moving towards renewable energy such as, and implementation of sustainable development goals. The sustainable development goals, it is aiming to attain sustainable development, and the climate change is also the Paris Agreement and things like that is also aiming to attain the same thing. Now, for example, if there is a goal regarding SDG goals regarding poverty, okay, so if we could eradicate poverty, that will help us to adapt towards climate change, especially the developing as well as least developed countries. So if we could attain sustainable development goals, it will help us to adapt to the climate change. Then afforestation, then research and development in carbon storage and sequestration technologies. CSS means, or carbon storage and sequestration means, absorbing the amount of carbon or absorbing the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and storing it away from the carbon cycle, so that the impact of carbon dioxide can be reduced. Okay. So all these can be seen as the solutions, and here, since they haven't specifically asked about the solutions, we have to start our conclusion by saying these solutions, and while concluding we should mention that why we need to solve this issue of climate change, or what will be the future benefit if we take these solutions, what will be the future benefits. Sustainable development, as well as it is having an ethical aspect, in the sense, so ethically we should conserve our environment so that our future generations can enjoy the benefits of our environment. So by saying all these things, you can conclude your answer. Again, you should give more importance to the symptoms part, and you have to, if the word limit permits, you can bring up the causes as well as the solutions. Symptoms and solutions, they are necessary in the answer, right? In this kind of questions, while concluding, what you can do is start by saying the important solutions. What are the mitigation measures? You need not bring everything. What are the core points there which we have discussed? You can bring up the solutions there, and while concluding, you can say that what will be the future benefits if these solutions are taken, right? What will be the future benefits in the sense sustainable development and the ethical aspect or ethical duty.